Ryan, exhausted after a long surgery, collapsed onto the sofa in the staff room and immediately fell asleep. The case was severe. His fellow surgeons didn't dare to take on such a task. It was a heart operation on a 3-month-old baby. The unfortunate child's parents spent the whole night in the corridor, unable to sleep. When a nurse came out and announced the surgery was successful and the patient would live, they rushed to the ward but were not allowed in. "Go home, rest, and come back tomorrow," the nurse told the parents, who were barely standing. "Can we at least talk to the doctor?" asked the mother. "Mr. Levy won't see you now. He's been in surgery for over 5 hours. All questions can wait until tomorrow," she replied. The hero of the day, Surgeon Ryan Levy, slept without even removing his glasses, completely drained. None of his colleagues dared to disturb him. He was admired in the hospital, a young man, 37 years old, with a successful career and hundreds of grateful patients. The interns adored him, and he had a beautiful wife, but for some reason, he didn't seem happy. He spent most of his time at work, taking extra shifts and complex surgeries. Even the group of interns originally assigned to him was meant to learn under another doctor, but that doctor prioritized his family first. Despite his workload, Ryan earned a modest salary, almost all of which went to his wife's whims. Pam, his wife, was a demanding woman with a strong personality. She worked as a makeup artist, opened her own salon, and invested all her earnings into her business. Therefore, Ryan had to cover the rest of their expenses. Pam was dissatisfied that her husband spent so much time at work. Grateful patients offered Ryan gifts and assistance for successful surgeries, but he, a man of conscience, refused, believing he was just doing his job. This also upset his wife. Ryan's rest after the surgery was short. He fell asleep in the staff room at 4 a.m., and at 7 a.m., a phone call woke him up. "Hello, hi Pam," he answered, still half asleep. "Hi, did you spend another night at work?" she asked, displeased. "It was a difficult case, a 3-month-old baby with a heart defect. I finished just over 3 hours ago." "How did it go?" "Successfully." "You're coming home now, right?" asked his wife. "No. I've asked to invite the parents at 9 to discuss the surgery. I'm working until 6 today," Ryan replied. "You could have taken the day off." Her voice grew darker. "After such overtime, I'll soon forget what you look like." "Dear, put yourself in their shoes," the husband defended himself. "They also spent the whole night here. It's their own flesh and blood. I can't leave people in such a situation. Good thing you woke me up. I need to freshen up a bit." "You can't leave anyone but me. I hope they properly thank you for saving their child's life," Pam said. "Stop that. You know my principles," Ryan said firmly. "We have nothing at home. I walk to work because there's no money for gas, and you have principles. Why work around the clock if they don't pay for it?" Pam exclaimed and hung up the phone. The day at the hospital continued calmly and steadily. Patient checkups, paperwork, diagnoses. At lunch, Ryan met with his colleague, a therapist, in the cafeteria. This was a good friend from university days. Unlike Ryan, his friend Tony was not struggling financially and was happy in his marriage. "Heard you did surgery on an infant last night?" Tony inquired. "Yes, all night in the OR, so now I need a double portion of coffee," Ryan replied. "You don't take care of yourself, didn't go home, and why would I? To again face Pam's unhappy expression?" Ryan sighed. "You should accept gratitude at least once. Maybe that would change her mood," suggested Tony. "Why is everyone on my case? I'm just doing my duty. I took an oath, just like you did." "I don't understand where you pick it up, this mercantilism," Ryan retorted. "I just want to live normally, eat good and healthy food, drive a decent car, have a happy wife. I work no less than you. And Pam, I think, won't tolerate you much longer." Tony continued. "That doesn't upset me. We got married as students. We didn't even have money for pasta then. And nothing. We lived happily." Ryan replied. "And now what? Do I need this? And another thing, money corrupts," he added. After work, Ryan walked home leisurely, knowing an offended wife awaited him, who, instead of support, would voice grievances and demands. It was 8 p.m. when Ryan entered his apartment. His wife was not there. "Where are you?" He decided to call her to find out why she was late. "I'm at Katya's, won't be back soon. Sit and think about how I feel waiting for you from yet another extra shift," Pam replied smugly and hung up. Ryan was even glad his wife decided to stay at a friend's. He could rest peacefully, watch TV, and no one would stand over him, listing demands and grievances. Pam came home early in the morning, just as Ryan was preparing for work. He hadn't felt so calm and rested in a long time. When his wife entered, the atmosphere immediately turned tense. "You know," Pam began evenly, "I lied to you yesterday." "Really? And what was your lie?" Ryan asked curiously, not expecting the information his wife would reveal next. "I wasn't at Katya's. I spent the night with another man," she added. Ryan looked at his wife disapprovingly, his jaws tensed, but he restrained himself. As a representative of an intellectual profession, he always maintained composure and mastered self-control. Inside, however, a storm of emotions raged. "So," said Ryan, "and perhaps you have something else to tell me." "Of course I do," Pam immediately responded. "You're a very good person, but as a husband, you're inadequate. I can't remember when you last paid attention to me. You don't give compliments, you don't give gifts, and you're hardly ever home. But I want to live in love and peace, spend weekends together." "So far, all your complaints are fair," Ryan agreed. "I'll continue. Don't interrupt," Pam requested. "On another lonely weekend, I was walking in the park. A man approached me, began to court me beautifully. You didn't even notice that I bring home bouquets. I have new jewelry," she said. "I noticed the bouquets, thought they were gifts from work. But you're right about the diamonds. I didn't pay attention," Ryan said. "This is what I'm talking about. You don't look at me at all. In short, I fell in love with this man. It's been going on for several months. He's wealthy, has his own business, and devotes all his free time to me. So sorry, but I'm leaving you," Pam declared. "Okay. Perhaps you deserve such a life, to be loved and showered with jewels. Of course, I couldn't give you that," Ryan responded. "I need your consent for a divorce. I'm moving out today," added Pam. "Unexpected, but I have nothing to say to you. You want a divorce? You'll get it." "I hope your conscience doesn't trouble you too much," Ryan replied. It was hard for him, but he didn't resist his wife's departure. In any case, things had been heading this way for a long time. Thus, Ryan was left completely alone. His life had nothing but his beloved work. After the divorce, Ryan's days became indistinguishable from each other. Tony supported him, though he scolded him for losing such a woman as Pam. "Aren't you going to try to win her back?" Tony asked his friend. "What's the point? She's been having an affair for months. What can I offer her against that man's beautiful courtship?" "Let her go her own way," Ryan replied indifferently. "One day, the routine hospital life was disrupted by a scandal. A homeless woman with severe abdominal pain was admitted. She needed urgent surgery, but no doctor was willing to take on the case. "Get her out of here," shouted the nurse at the paramedics. "Look at her, she reeks. She's dressed in who knows what. Her skin's already gray. The woman's a goner." "Where do we take her? Back to the street?" the paramedic protested. "We have a regime here. We can't admit such patients. Other patients will catch something from her. Take her back where you found her," the nurse said. "How can I throw a poor woman out on the street, Yulia? You should be helping people, and you're pushing me to sin," the paramedic argued. Ryan heard the commotion from his office. He wasn't busy, so he decided to find out what was happening in his department. "Julia," Ryan addressed the nurse, "what's all this commotion? The patients are frightened." "Take a look," the girl replied, pointing to the paramedics with the stretcher. This George, simple-minded, brought in a homeless woman, and they demand we operate, the nurse added. Why wasn't I informed? Ryan asked sternly. Is the operating room ready? What? You're going to operate on her. No doctor agreed. We'll catch some infection, the nurse retorted. Quickly prepare the patient and the operating room for surgery, Mr. Levy ordered, calling the assistants. We must help everyone, not just the chosen few. The nurse rolled her eyes and gestured to the paramedics where to place the patient. Ryan examined the woman and confirmed the need for immediate surgery. A few hours later, Ryan emerged from the OR. The surgery was successful. The woman would live. The doctor ordered her to be transferred to a ward. The patient had no documents, so she couldn't be admitted formally. Mr. Levy took personal responsibility to keep her in the hospital. When the woman regained consciousness, Ryan immediately went to see her. Hello, my name is Mr. Levy. I'm your attending physician. The doctor introduced himself. I operated on you yesterday. Good morning, the patient replied. My name is Morgan. I don't know how I can express my gratitude to you. No need, just rest and recover. That's all you can do for now. I need your documents to admit you to the hospital, Ryan said. There might be a problem with that. Morgan looked noticeably sad and averted her gaze. Don't you have friends or relatives who can bring them? Ryan asked, trying to speak delicately. Not exactly. I'm not sure if my documents are intact, and the girl who might have them definitely won't want to help me, she replied. Give me the girl's number. I'll talk to her myself, Ryan offered. I don't know her number, Mr. Levy. I don't have any documents, Morgan admitted. Ryan left the room, leaving the conversation unfinished. He was unsure how to proceed. He couldn't keep a patient without documents in the department, but he felt Morgan needed help. She looked unkempt, clearly having lived on the streets for a long time, but her speech and manners indicated she was once a respectable woman. Likely some misfortune had befallen her, leading her to the streets. Lunchtime came, and Ryan, as usual, went down to the cafeteria, where his loyal friend Tony was waiting. What's with this homeless woman? Tony inquired. Let's not refer to patients that way, Ryan chided, then added, How do you know all this already? I just call things as they are. Rumors spread fast and your nurses need more work. They've informed the whole hospital. When do they find the time? Tony shrugged. So, what are you going to do with her? Did she bring her documents? She just regained consciousness. Says she doesn't have any documents, Ryan replied. And you forbid me to call her anything. There's something about her, something human. I don't know how to explain it. She doesn't seem like the typical street dweller. I think she was deceived or something, Ryan said. You'll have problems. You realize that? Tony said, looking at Ryan as if wanting to let him in on a secret. Of course I understand, but I also can't throw her out on the street with a fresh wound, Ryan said. Take her to your place, Tony laughed. Pam left, there's space. You're our ever-reliable savior, Tony added. Ryan didn't respond to his friend's sarcastic joke, but thought maybe he should indeed offer her a place to stay temporarily until she recovers. What are you pondering so intensely? Tony asked. I was joking, but you're seriously considering taking her home? Nothing. Ryan dismissed his friend. Eat, it'll get cold. After lunch, Ryan went back to the problematic patient. He wanted to find out what had happened to her and how he could help. Morgan, sorry I left you this morning, but I needed time to decide on your... Tell me the address of this girl. I'll go and get your documents, Ryan proposed. Mr. Levy, it's complicated. Amber won't give you the documents. I'm not even sure she has them, Morgan replied. Who is Amber, and why won't she help you? Ryan didn't understand. Morgan burst into tears. She didn't want to dive into painful memories, but she realized she needed to tell her story for clarity. I was married, Morgan began, to a very good and well-off man. We met after his divorce. He had a daughter, Amber, from that marriage. She was 12 when we met. She disliked me immediately. But I didn't try to replace her mother. I just wanted to establish a friendly relationship. I failed. We lived together for several years. Amber grew up, finished school, but never moved out. Then Dennis, my partner, died of lung cancer. The grief didn't bring Amber and me together. She hated me even more. A month after the funeral, she kicked me out onto the street. That girl is crazy. She threatened me with a knife. I ran away in my house clothes. Of course, at that moment, I wasn't thinking about gathering documents or any belongings. I was scared for my life. Morgan finished her story. What a nightmare. Ryan was horrified by the story. Didn't you try to go back home? I tried, but it was useless. Amber changed the locks, even though I didn't take the keys with me. Every time I came home, she threatened to kill me. Then a young man moved in with her. He beat me every time I tried to enter the apartment. Didn't you go to the police? Ryan asked. I did, but what was the use? They wouldn't even listen to me. I had no documents and looked unkempt. They threatened to lock me up for 15 days if I didn't leave the station alone. Amber later threw some of my things down from the balcony, but I didn't get any documents or the money I had saved. It's been over a year. I think she got rid of all of it. Maybe she even sold the apartment. She always wanted to move. But how is that possible? I don't understand, Ryan asked. I didn't understand either and will never be able to. I really had no claim to the apartment, but Amber could have just told me that. I would have moved out, Morgan explained. And you have no relatives who could shelter you? Ryan inquired. No, my parents died a long time ago. I sold their house to help Dennis with his business. I lived with acquaintances at first, but then they moved away and didn't take me with them. I had to wander the streets. A few months ago, I started feeling unwell. I didn't go to the hospital. I had no documents or money. That's how I ended up here, said Morgan. Mr. Levy pondered. Sending Morgan back to the street now meant condemning her to certain death. As a doctor and a decent man, he couldn't allow that. He looked into the eyes of this unfortunate woman again and saw in them utter despair, fear, and hopelessness. I'll keep you in the hospital for another 2 days. We can't keep patients without documents for more than 3 days. Think during this time, who can help you? He said, and left the room. Ryan stayed on duty at the hospital that day. During his shift, he was with Nurse Diana, who was already aware of the homeless patient's story. To pass the long night shift, she decided to ask the doctor in detail about this woman. What are we going to do with Morgan? Are you keeping her? Diana asked. For 2 days, Ryan replied. And don't look at me so accusingly. Are you suggesting we throw her out on the street, like an unwanted kitten? Ryan asked. No, of course not. I'm just curious, what next? Diana asked. That's no longer our concern, but at least her stitches will heal, Ryan replied. You think that's help? I think you're doing worse than if you'd refused her immediately, Diana said. I don't follow your point. Ryan was surprised by the nurse's words. You saved her, gave her hope, but she knows that in 2 days she'll be back on the street. Here, she's fed, cared for. What's it like to end up in a basement after that? Plus, she knows she doesn't belong here, Diana explained. If you and Julia hadn't pointed out the last fact, she wouldn't feel that way, Ryan replied disapprovingly. Indeed, the nurses treated Morgan differently than other patients. Their behavior showed that she was an outsider. I would ask you to stop such behavior, Ryan said firmly. Sorry. Honestly, she doesn't seem like our usual homeless, Diana suspiciously said. That's right. Morgan found herself in a difficult life situation, and for an hour now, I've been racking my brain on how to help her. Did you go to her in the evening? How is she feeling? Ryan asked. I forgot about her completely, Diana suddenly remembered. What? So you didn't give her the evening injection? Ryan looked at Diana sternly. No, I forgot, Diana replied. Then go and do it, Ryan ordered sharply. Diana hurried for the medication and rushed to Morgan's ward. Moments later, she burst out screaming, "Call for help, Mr. Levy, urgently!" Diana was pale with fear. The doctor immediately jumped up and headed to the ward. "What happened?" he asked on the run. She seems to have died," Diana said, trembling with fear. "Hurry here, there's blood everywhere, she cut her veins." "Why are you dawdling?" Ryan exploded in anger. "Never seen blood? Didn't study medicine?" Ryan checked Morgan's pulse, quickly examined her. "She's alive, everything's fine. Bring bandages, alcohol, needle and thread. We'll stitch her up," Mr. Levy declared. They stopped the bleeding and stitched the wounds. All the while, Morgan was conscious and crying nonstop, murmuring, "Why are you saving me?" At that moment, Diana truly felt sorry for this woman. If not for her forgetfulness, the situation could have ended much sadder. "You saved my life again," Morgan said as Ryan finished applying the bandage. "But what's the point? I'll have to return to the streets where I'm unwanted. Why do I even need such a life?" "Every life is important," Ryan replied. "Have you decided to move from our department to psychiatric care?" Morgan didn't understand his joke. "After a suicide attempt, I'm obligated to show you to a psychiatrist. Actually, you've thought of a good solution. There you will live under a roof and in warmth," Ryan said. "I didn't have that intention. I truly see my situation as hopeless," Morgan defended herself. "You're a good person, but it's clear I'm doomed. To the psychiatric hospital, then. Maybe it's a way out," Morgan said. "No, you can't imagine what awaits you there. You don't look or talk like a mentally unstable person. I need to go. Can I leave you alone and trust that you won't harm yourself again? Or should I arrange for a guard?" Ryan asked. "Please forgive me. I promise I won't cause you any more trouble," Morgan replied shamefully. "If it weren't for my forgetful nurse, I wouldn't have saved you," Ryan said as he left. "You've been given another chance. Think about it. You're an adult woman, and you're resorting to such things." Mr. Levy left the ward, his head spinning. "Diana, give Morgan a sedative. Let her sleep. Then we can be sure the shift will end without incident. Can I trust you won't forget about this?" Ryan asked. The nurse nodded obediently and went for the medication. Ryan tried to sleep, but rest eluded him. He lay awake all night, analyzing what had happened. How desperate must this woman's situation be to resort to such an act? Any life, even the most miserable, is better than death. He couldn't simply let Morgan go. She was doomed in that case. He decided to let her stay with him. He lived alone, was hardly ever home, and having a woman around would help with the household chores. It might sort itself out eventually. With these thoughts, he drifted off to sleep and had a strange dream. In the dream, Ryan found himself in a room with many doors. He tried to open them, but none would budge. He yelled for help, but no one responded. In desperation, he began breaking down the walls. After much effort, one collapsed, revealing Morgan in a similar situation. He approached her, took her hand, and all the doors in both rooms opened, letting in bright light. Ryan woke up. "What a nightmare," he said to himself. "Now I understand what it feels like to see no path or hope." Ryan took the dream as a sign. He felt empathy for Morgan. Her life was a room with closed doors. Without Ryan, she faced certain doom. And perhaps she was a lifeline for him too? Maybe this encounter would help them both. After the prophetic dream, Ryan was more determined to invite Morgan to his place. He needed to think about how to politely and carefully offer this option to her. He felt she was a proud woman and might refuse. Ryan decided to wait and offer Morgan help on the day of her discharge, so she would definitely agree and not change her mind. The day came when Morgan had to be discharged. Ryan went to Morgan's ward early in the morning. "Hello. I have good news for you. We won't be keeping you here any longer. You're being discharged today." Ryan said as optimistically as he could. Honestly, I don't share your joy. It's a sad thing, but somehow funny, Morgan replied. Have you thought about where you'll live? Ryan asked. I have many options. Under a bridge, behind a fence, in an alley. Don't worry, I'll find a place, Morgan said. I'd like to offer you a solution, but I want to warn you. I'm not insisting. You can refuse if it makes you uncomfortable, Ryan started, pausing to make sure Morgan was listening attentively. I live alone. My wife left me, so I could use some help around the house, he continued. Are you inviting me to your place? Morgan clarified. Yes, I genuinely feel sorry for you. I don't want a repeat of the self-harm incident. Besides, you look and speak like an educated woman. I trust you and really want to help. I spend most of my time at work. We'll hardly see each other, Ryan explained. Aren't you worried what other people will think? The patient asked. Firstly, there's a big age difference between us, Ryan started. Morgan was already over 50. Secondly, we won't tell anyone about it. Thirdly, who cares? Well, what do you say? Should I get another sleeping set from the attic for you? Ryan asked. Of course, I can't refuse. You know I have nowhere to go. I'm immensely grateful to you. I promise I won't bother you for long, Morgan replied. We'll talk about that later. You can stay as long as you need. I'll finish the paperwork now and then we'll go home. Ryan concluded the conversation and left the ward. After lunch, Ryan told his colleagues he urgently needed to go home, lied about a flood from the neighbors, and left with Morgan for his apartment. Morgan felt very awkward, which was noticeable, so Ryan tried to show with his behavior that the presence of his guest didn't bother him. I know the hospital food is mediocre, so how about something homemade? Ryan said, helping Morgan settle in. Let's order something. Why? Morgan asked. If you have potatoes and some meat in the fridge, I'll cook lunch. It'll be ready in half an hour. Morgan wanted to repay Ryan's kindness. From the pizza boxes and takeaway bags piled in the kitchen, it was clear that the doctor hadn't eaten home-cooked food in a long time. Not sure about the meat, but there are definitely sausages, Ryan replied cheerfully. That's how they lived. Ryan spent his days in the hospital saving lives, and Morgan took care of the household of the lonely doctor. She quickly recuperated, cleaned the apartment, shopped for groceries with the modest amount Ryan gave her, and laundered all the clothes. None of the doctor's friends knew he had taken in a homeless patient, not even Tony. The neighbors thought a distant relative had come to stay with him. One day, a neighbor asked Ryan about it. He affirmed it to avoid further questions. 2 months passed since Morgan moved in with Ryan. One day, his ex-wife called, and he was surprised, not expecting to speak to her again. Hello? Ryan politely replied to his ex-wife's call. Miss me? He asked. Hi. Oh, how could I not? She laughed in response. Are you home? Pam asked. No, at work, Ryan replied. Of course. Pam sighed heavily. When will you be home? In a couple of weeks? She asked. Stop joking. You should have been nagging another man for a long time, Ryan replied sarcastically to her joke. All right then. So when can I catch you at home? I need to pick up my passport. I forgot to take it, Pam said. I'm on night duty today, so only tomorrow, Ryan replied. I need it today. Maybe I can come over, get the keys, and then return them to you. Pam suggested a solution. No, I'm about to go into surgery. Don't know how long I'll be there. And anyway, why should you travel all this way? There's one person living at my place. She'll let you in, Ryan replied. Ooh, Ryan, have you found yourself a new life companion? Pam's mood brightened. No, it's a distant aunt who came to visit. He brushed it off. Her name is Morgan. You knock. She'll let you in. I'll call her now to let her know, Ryan added. I don't remember you having such relatives. Pam was surprised. Do you need the passport today, or will you wait for me until tomorrow? Ryan began to get annoyed. All right. Tell her I'll come in an hour, Pam conceded. Ryan informed Morgan about his ex-wife's visit and continued working. Tony overheard his friend's conversation and became curious about this relative living with him. He had noticed Ryan behaving somewhat secretively lately. He had changed. Sometimes Ryan skipped lunch, bringing food in containers. This was very unlike him, as even when married, Ryan never ate homemade food for lunch. Maybe you'll tell me about this relative who's moved in with you? Tony decided to probe for the truth. Just a second cousin from the countryside. Ryan tried to deflect. Don't lie. Relatives visiting is such an event that can't be kept quiet. I doubt an aunt would be packing containers and ironing shirts for you, and no one can endure guests for so long. You've been looking well-groomed lately, Tony insisted. Ryan didn't want to discuss it, but he knew Tony wouldn't let it go. All right, I'll tell you, but let's agree right now. No judgments or preaching from you, Ryan conceded. Remember the homeless woman I operated on? She tried to harm herself, truly had nowhere to go. I couldn't just throw her out on the street like unwanted stuff. I invited her to stay with me, and in return, she's managing my household. Hence the food and ironed shirts. It's like living with my mom again, Ryan confessed. Tony had a lot to say to his friend, but held back, as he had promised. I just feel sorry for her. She's not bothering me, Ryan said. And how long is this going to last? Forever? Tony asked. Morgan is working on getting her documents back. Then she'll find a job, stand on her feet a bit, save some money, and move out, Ryan explained. Pam arrived at Ryan's apartment about an hour and a half after the call. Morgan was a bit nervous about this meeting, even though Ryan had settled everything and explained to his wife. When Morgan opened the door, she hurriedly disappeared into another room, recognizing the visiting woman. She hoped Pam hadn't recognized her, but Pam also remembered the familiar face. They just greeted each other. Pam quickly took the documents and left. Then, all day, she tried to recall where she had seen Morgan before and remembered. In the evening, Ryan's phone was bombarded with calls from Pam. Hello, dear, Ryan greeted sarcastically. Do you want to take something else from me? No, we need to talk, replied his ex-wife. Interesting about what? Not over the phone. You said you're off tomorrow. Let's meet then. All right, if it's that urgent, better in the evening. Then at 5 o'clock, I'll send you the location where I'll reserve a table, Pam replied and hung up. Ryan was intrigued. When he returned from work, Morgan had already woken up and was preparing breakfast. He decided to ask her if Pam had said anything when she came. How did you find my wife? Ryan asked. A very striking woman. You're a fool for letting her go. Morgan laughed. Yes, she's beautiful, and such a woman shouldn't live in conditions I can provide. I agree with her on that, but she has a fiery temper. Did she say anything yesterday? Ryan asked. No, we just greeted each other. She left very quickly, Morgan said. Ryan pondered. He noticed Morgan was a bit nervous when he asked about Pam. So, he thought, something must have happened between them yesterday or before. He decided to wait for the evening to find out. Pam, like any self-respecting woman, arrived 20 minutes late to the cafe. Ryan was starting to worry she wouldn't come when she finally entered. His ex-wife seemed to look younger and more beautiful than before. Divorce has done you good. Ryan made a dubious compliment. I can say the same about you. Your new housemate takes good care of you, Pam replied. She's my aunt, just helping around the house, Ryan dismissed. And it's about her I wanted to talk to you, Pam said. Pam decided to get straight to the point, not to prolong the meeting. Are you sure she's your relative? She asked. Pam, what kind of questions are these? Are you jealous? Ryan said. No. Where do you get that? She came from the village, hence her domesticity, Ryan explained. Pam nodded but pursed her lips. Ryan knew her well. This action meant she didn't trust him. I don't understand you. You cheated on me, left me. And now, after a few months, you decide to make a scene of jealousy? Ryan asked. Oh, who needs you? I'm not jealous. I'm trying to understand something, Pam replied. Like what, for example? Ryan asked. Why are you lying to me? Or were you lying before? Or is Morgan lying to you? I just can't understand that, Pam said. Can you be straightforward? Enough with your riddles. Ryan couldn't stand the suspense. I know this, Morgan, Pam finally said. She was a regular visitor to my salon, almost every day for hair and makeup, leaving us considerable sums, tipping the girls so much they sometimes forgot about their salaries. Now I'm curious. If you have such a relative, how could I not know about her, and you're lying to me? She didn't come from any village, Pam said. You must be confusing her with someone else, Ryan doubted. Stop. You remember your richest and most grateful client? Pam asked. Of course. I've only seen watches like his in pictures, Ryan agreed. Now imagine he comes to you several times a week. Would you confuse him with someone else? Pam asked. You're saying Morgan was a very wealthy lady? Ryan asked. Very much so. She was just a role model for me. At 55, she looked fantastic, took care of herself, only branded bags, glasses. So, seeing her yesterday in the state she's in now, I couldn't believe my eyes, Pam explained. She had a tragedy in life. I basically picked her up from the street, Ryan shared. Sad. We thought she had gone somewhere. She hadn't visited us for a long time. But how is that possible? Why did she end up on the street? Please tell me. Otherwise, I'll go crazy, Pam pleaded. Ryan couldn't resist her pleading look. She often used it when she needed something. Besides, he understood Pam wouldn't let it go. He then told Morgan's story from the beginning. Do you know anything else about her? Ryan asked. She only told me that her husband died and the stepdaughter kicked her out. No other specifics, Ryan said. I don't know much about her. I remember her husband dealt with jewelry, and she was into charity. A very kind woman. That's all. It's a pity her life turned out this way. Well, I'm off. I'm flying on a trip tomorrow morning. Good luck, Pam finished. The former spouses said goodbye, and Ryan walked home, mulling over the information he had received. Life can be so unpredictable. One moment you have wealth and connections, and the next, everything vanishes like a dream. Even if Morgan restores her documents, she won't be able to regain her former status. Ryan arrived home and decided to ask his houseguest about her past life. They had been living under the same roof for 2 months and knew nothing about each other's past. Morgan, why don't you talk about your ex-husband? Were you unhappy with him? Ryan asked Morgan. No, we lived very well. Only Amber was a problem. But Dennis wasn't my husband, we just cohabited, she replied. What was Dennis like? What did he do? Ryan inquired. He was a kind man. I didn't want to rush when he proposed to me. He had a dream of moving to a country house, to have his own terrace, garden, and pool. Morgan began her story. Why didn't you move? Ryan asked. We didn't have time. He bought a house that was falling apart. We all advised it against it, but he insisted. The plot was indeed nice, with a forest right behind it. He went there every weekend. We never understood why, Morgan replied. Having your own house is good. I'd also like to swap my cramped apartment for a house in the forest, Ryan said. When Dennis died, Amber immediately put the house up for sale at a ridiculously low price. She didn't need it at all, but I wouldn't have minded living there away from the city bustle, Morgan said. A thought struck Morgan. She straightened up, her eyes alight with excitement. They decided to check if the listing was still available. Ryan had forgotten that Morgan never answered his main question. He handed her his phone, and she frantically started searching for the listing. After about 10 minutes of scrolling, she exclaimed triumphantly, Here, look at this beauty! Initially skeptical, Ryan became genuinely interested. The nature is beautiful. The house itself is so-so, honestly, Ryan said. But the forest as a holiday retreat is a great option. Dennis wanted to completely redo the house and move there. It would be great to fulfill his dream and live there someday, Morgan sighed. Are you suggesting I should buy this plot? Ryan chuckled. Why not? Morgan replied enthusiastically. I don't know about your financial situation, but the price is ridiculously low. I think Amber would be only too happy to get rid of the property, maybe even give a discount, Morgan said. The price is attractive and the house is within the city limits. Considering it as a holiday home is convenient, can reach there by bus. Ryan pondered. You know, I have some savings, but that's my last money. If I buy the house, I'll have no safety cushion left, Ryan said. I'm not insisting. We just decided to look at this house for fun, Morgan apologized. But you've piqued my interest. I'll think about it, Ryan said. Ryan really started considering buying the house. It seemed impractical to spend money on unnecessary real estate, but it could be seen as an investment. If he renovated the house and improved the plot, he could sell it at a higher price. The next morning, Ryan woke up with the same thoughts about the house. He decided to consult his friend, though he guessed what Tony would say. That's a good idea. Tony unexpectedly supported his friend. Seriously? Ryan was surprised. I thought you'd try to dissuade me. After your idea of taking in a stranger from the street, buying a house seems very sensible, Tony said. They laughed. Ryan showed Tony the photos of the house. Tony praised the plot and the forest. The house will need some investment, but otherwise it's fine. The price is excellent, Tony concluded. I think initially I'll use it as a holiday home, then in a couple of years, maybe save up, renovate, and sell it, unless I change my mind. Ryan shared his plans. Go for it. I'll be first in line for the barbecue, Tony said. In the evening, Ryan decided to talk to Morgan again. He thought to ask if she wanted to join him in inspecting the house. What? Morgan was frightened by the suggestion. The seller is Amber. If she sees me, you won't be able to buy the house, she added. That's true. What should I be prepared for in dealing with her? Ryan asked. I think she'll be polite with you. She's not a bad girl, just inexplicably hateful towards me, Morgan said. Ryan called the number in the listing. A very friendly girl answered. If he hadn't known how she treated Morgan, he would never have thought someone with such an angelic voice could be capable of evil. The viewing was scheduled for Saturday. Ryan quickly reached the plot, noting this as an additional plus. At the house, Amber, a young, beautiful girl with a sporty figure, was waiting for him. She greeted him politely, gave a tour of the house and plot, and said she was selling urgently, so she was ready to reduce the price a bit more. Ryan agreed to buy the house. While Amber showed him around, he noticed her unusual walk and that she often held her back. Congratulations on the purchase. I hope you'll be happy here, Amber said as they parted. Sorry for the indiscreet question, Ryan politely said. But I see you take care of yourself and do sports, certainly not at an amateur level. Yes, I'm a fitness trainer, Amber confirmed his guess. Have you visited a surgeon recently? Ryan asked. Actually, no, I just can't find the time. Though I should, lately I often have back pain, Amber replied. That's why I asked. You see, I'm a surgeon and I can confidently say you have a herniated disc, but I'll need an examination to confirm, Ryan said. Oh, is it serious? Amber was frightened. If it's not too advanced, medication might help, but it looks like you'll need surgery. I'll write down my hospital address. Come by tomorrow, we'll check your back, Ryan said. All right, I'll come by. Definitely need to give you a discount then, Amber smiled. Ryan didn't tell Morgan he had decided to help the girl who had destroyed her life. He simply shared the good news about buying the house. How was it? Did you like it? Morgan asked. Very nice. Fresh air. I didn't inspect the house thoroughly, but Amber is giving it away with all the stuff left by your Dennis. I think she didn't even touch them, Ryan replied. Good. Maybe we'll find something useful for us. I'd like to see what he kept there. I was only there a couple of times. Dennis often went to the house alone, Morgan said. We'll do the deal after the weekend. On Tuesday or Wednesday, we can go there as owners. I'll take a couple of days off work, Ryan concluded. The next day, as agreed, Amber came to the hospital. Unfortunately, the diagnosis was confirmed and she needed surgery. Since she was leaving soon, they didn't delay. The hernia was removed the next day. Amber stayed in the hospital for a couple of days, so the house deal was postponed. Hello, Diana, Amber addressed the nurse. You have a wonderful doctor, Ryan Levy. He performed surgery on me yesterday. Yes, the nurse agreed. He is a remarkable specialist. You are lucky to have been in his hands. I think so too. I would like to thank him. Can you tell me what he prefers? Cognac or whiskey? Or maybe just money? It's useless, girl, replied Diana. He doesn't accept any gifts, so don't bother. Just say it in words. How strange, laughed Amber. Such people still exist nowadays. It's not right. He didn't have to help me. He is kind and not mercenary, the nurse added. Amber left thoughtfully, suspecting the nurse might not know her boss's true intentions. When it was time for discharge, Ryan invited Amber to his office to complete the paperwork. Congratulations! Today we're setting you free, Ryan joked. You are a very good person, Ryan. I'm glad we met. You can count on a good discount for the house, and this is for you too, Amber said, offering a package for the discount. Thank you, but keep this. I don't accept gifts for my work, Ryan said. Amber, slightly disappointed, glanced at the package. The nurse was right. An amazing person, she thought. But I must thank you. You spent your time on me. Ryan pondered, seeing an opportunity to help Morgan. He decided to reveal his thoughts. If you really want to show gratitude, you can do a good deed for me. Amber reached for the package again, but the doctor stopped her. No, not gifts. You can also do a good deed for me. He slowed down. I know a woman whose life you negatively impacted, Ryan said. Amber was puzzled. Months ago, I operated on a homeless woman without documents. She told me about you, he explained. Amber realized who he was talking about. Her cheeks flushed with shame. That reaction gives hope, Ryan thought. You might know who I mean, he continued. I have a guess, Amber replied, voice trembling. I won't judge your action, but you can help Morgan, whom you indirectly harmed. Amber tried to justify herself, but couldn't. Ryan relieved her. What's done is done, but you can return her documents if they're intact. Of course, I don't know why she didn't come herself, Amber lied. If you don't want to meet her, bring the documents tomorrow when we sign the sales contract. Can you find them by then? Ryan asked. Let's do that, Amber agreed, relieved. After giving Amber post-surgery instructions, she quickly left his office. Ryan marveled at how such a delicate person could harm Morgan. On the day of the document signing, Ryan went alone. Morgan, not wanting to see Amber, stayed home, preparing for a celebratory barbecue in their new garden. Ryan kept Morgan's surprise a secret. The deal went smoothly, and Morgan's documents were retrieved. Ryan returned and started preparing for the evening. Morgan, seeing her late husband's house, was moved to tears. It felt like he could walk in any moment. It feels like Dennis's spirit is here, she shared. I'd rather not live in a house with spirits, Ryan joked. Morgan laughed. Not in that sense. Of course, I understand, Ryan replied, presenting her with the documents from a familiar acquaintance. From Amber? Morgan was surprised. Maybe I don't want it. I think you'll like it, Ryan said, handing her the documents. Morgan hugged Ryan, tearfully grateful. How did you do this? I thought they were long lost. How can I thank you? Find the barbecue equipment in the shed. Amber said they should be there. I need to find some clothes for the evening, Ryan said. After a warm embrace, Morgan put the documents in her bag and went to search for the barbecue tools. Ryan, exploring the house, found kitchenware, but no clothes, and a mysterious hook in the bedroom ceiling. Pulling it, a ladder dropped down, revealing a secret attic. He climbed up, finding a spacious but unremarkable attic, except for a chest near the far wall. Without a lock, he decided to bring it downstairs for examination. Unable to open it, they noticed a combination lock. "Let's try some dates," Ryan suggested. They tried Dennis's birthday, Amber's, and Morgan's, but nothing worked. "Let's leave it for now. The coals are ready," Morgan said, disappointed. They went to the garden, enjoying a peaceful barbecue under the pine trees. "It's nice here," Ryan concluded. Yes, Dennis dreamed of watching falling stars here, making wishes, free from worries, Morgan said teary-eyed. "Was he a romantic?" Ryan asked, then had a sudden realization. If Dennis was such a romantic and loved you so much. Ryan rushed into the house and returned with the chest in his hands. "We already tried my birthday. It didn't work," Morgan said indifferently. "It's too obvious. Tell me the date you met him," Ryan quickly said. Morgan named the date, not expecting success, but the lock mechanisms clicked one after the other, and the lock opened. Ryan lifted the lid, his eyes widened, and he quickly closed it again. "Morgan," he turned to the surprised woman, "did you ever tell me what Dennis did?" Ryan remembered Pam telling him about Morgan's husband, but he wanted to hear it from her. "He was a jeweler," Morgan replied. "He made and sold jewelry, sometimes bought it. What's in there? Don't keep me in suspense." "Then congratulations. It seems this is your inheritance," Ryan said, turning the chest and lifting the lid. Morgan gasped and covered her face when she saw the contents. It was filled with diamonds, rings, necklaces, and other jewels, sparkling beautifully in the setting sun. "Wow," Morgan exclaimed. "I knew he was saving for retirement. Dennis always said we'd live comfortably in our old age, but I thought he had a safe somewhere in the apartment, and Amber had already emptied it." "As you can see, your Denis was very thoughtful," Ryan replied. "I wonder how much this is all worth. Hide it quickly, someone might see. For such wealth, one could be killed," Morgan fretted. "I agree. Let's celebrate with the most expensive champagne. We can afford it now," Morgan joyfully declared. "What will you do with all this?" Ryan asked. "You mean, what will I do? This gold is yours by right," Morgan responded. "How so?" "You convinced me to buy the house, and your man saved these jewels." "I don't think I have a right to this find," Ryan said. "Stop it. Let this be my gratitude to you, and don't dare refuse. I know your principles. This is not the time. You twice saved my life, returned the documents, bought this house with your money," Morgan said. "If I had known this house would pay off so quickly, I wouldn't have bargained then," Ryan laughed. Ryan stored the jewels in a bank safe, deciding it was safer. Morgan got a job at a beauty salon, having previously been a hairdresser. Every weekend, Morgan and Ryan visited their house. One day, Ryan realized he was increasingly reluctant to return to his apartment. "Morgan," he said one evening on the terrace, "why don't we demolish this wreck and build a huge house here?" "We have the money," Morgan supported the idea. "The nature here is beautiful. It would be wonderful to live in this place." "I'll sell my apartment," Ryan said. "I also wanted to talk about moving. You've done a lot for me. I think it's time to go our separate ways. I've saved some money, found some rental options. I think it's time for me to move out," Morgan said. "Wait," Ryan shook his head. "Why live in rental apartments when we have so much money that you can buy several apartments in any area of the city?" "I repeat, I don't claim the jewels. I have principles too," Morgan countered. "Suppose I move here, my apartment will be free. I don't urgently need to sell it. But honestly, living alone in a huge house will build I wouldn't like. When we're together, we're lucky, so I'm not chasing you away. "You've become like family to me," Ryan said. "You're kind of like a younger brother to me." Morgan smiled. The conversation about moving was closed. Ryan started the construction. Despite the newfound wealth, he didn't work less and entrusted the demolition and construction to a hired crew. Morgan continued working at the beauty salon. One day, a young woman, Wendy, came to Morgan for a hairdo, trying to hide her face behind dark glasses. "Hello, Wendy," Morgan greeted. "These glasses suit you, but they will hinder my work." "Hello, I have a problem," Wendy said sadly, removing the glasses to reveal a large boil above her eyebrow, significantly marring her beautiful face. "I'm invited to a wedding. Look at this. Can you do a hairstyle to hide this monstrosity?" Wendy asked. "Of course, I'll help you," Morgan responded. The styling took several hours, so Morgan decided to chat. "Did you see a doctor?" she asked Wendy. "No," Wendy replied carelessly. "Why? It's just a pimple. I tried to squeeze it and it swelled up." "Girl, this is not just a pimple. The inflammation is spreading to your eye. Let me give you the number of a good surgeon. He'll help," Morgan said. "Do you think I should go to the hospital?" Wendy asked. "I insist. My surgeon is a good friend. He saved my life twice. What you have on your face looks very serious." "Okay, give me the number. I'll go for a consultation," Wendy agreed. Morgan gave her the number and warned Ryan to expect her. 2 days later, Wendy came for a consultation. Ryan examined her and decided the boil needed to be cut out and the pus removed. "This is surgery?" Wendy asked, frightened. "Don't worry, everything, including preparation, will take no more than 30 minutes, Ryan reassured her. "If you're not in a hurry, I can do it right now," he offered. Wendy agreed. The operation was successful. Afterward, Ryan met his friend Tony in the corridor. "You seem mysterious today," Tony noted. "In what way?" Ryan didn't understand. "I'm the same as always." "No, too happy. Maybe it's because of your patient who just left?" Tony said. "Well, yes, she's pretty. It's always nice to help a beautiful woman," Ryan replied. "No ring on her finger. You should ask her out," Tony winked. "It's time you started a personal life, friend." "I don't think she'd agree," Ryan replied. "I'm sure she would. She seemed so happy, as if she hadn't had her forehead cut open, but a Thai massage," Tony said. Whatever. Ryan dismissed his friend, but pondered asking Wendy out. He liked her, though he doubted her reciprocal feelings. Wendy went straight to the beauty salon after the operation. On the way, she bought a box of chocolates. "Morgan, I want to express my gratitude," Wendy said, approaching her. "I see you visited the doctor," Morgan noted, pointing to the bandage. "How did it go?" "Great. What was I afraid of? Ryan has such beautiful eyes. I looked into them and forgot about everything. I didn't even feel when they cut my forehead," Wendy laughed. "Is he, by the way, unmarried?" Morgan perked up. "A very wonderful single man." "Really?" Wendy pondered and twirled a strand of hair around her finger. "I caught the bouquet at the wedding." "Well, then it's fate," Morgan laughed. "But I won't make the first move. What if he didn't like me? I'd be embarrassed," Wendy said. "If you want, I'll find out. If he liked you, he'll call," Morgan offered. "I'll arrange it." Maybe it's really meant to be," Wendy agreed. "Well, tell me, is he really as good as he seems? I've had a bad relationship experience before. My ex-fiancé beat me, wouldn't let me go out without him. Though at first, he was also very nice and friendly," Wendy explained. "Horrible, how awful." Morgan was horrified. "Ryan isn't like that, I can tell you for sure. He's a surgeon, he saves people's lives. Would I recommend a tyrant to a girl?" Morgan countered. In the evening, Morgan decided to subtly find out if Ryan was attracted to her acquaintance, but she didn't know how to do it without him realizing she liked him. But Ryan himself started talking about the girl, which Morgan was very pleased with. "Wendy came from you today," Ryan started casually. "Good. I thought she wouldn't dare, Morgan pretended. And how is she? Fine. Everything was removed in 30 minutes. She'll be as good as new in a week, Ryan replied. And overall, as a person? Morgan asked curiously. What do you mean? Ryan didn't catch her hints. Well, as a girl, is she pretty? Morgan was burning with curiosity, eager to match these two. Pretty? Interesting, Ryan replied, a bit shyly. And she's single. I mean, she doesn't have a man. What's going on? Ryan began to suspect. Did you send her to me on purpose? Of course, she intentionally grew a boil on her eye to seduce you, Ryan. Morgan feigned anger. I just met her a few days ago, saw she was in trouble, and offered help, all in your best traditions. Don't be angry. It's just strange to me, Ryan reassured her. Do you think she would go on a date with me? How should I know? Morgan shrugged, though she was actually delighted. Call and ask. Do you still have her number? I do, but I think it's wrong, Ryan said. An adult man and still hesitating, Morgan teased. Were you this indecisive when you first got married? It was easier in my youth, Ryan excused himself. What if she thinks I'm using my position? The number was not for dating. She might think I'm some kind of maniac. Now you've become an old man. You're still young, my dear friend, and you're asking an old woman for advice. Morgan was amused by Ryan's modesty and shyness. Send an SMS, ask how she feels after the surgery, and things will unfold from there. Ryan did so. They texted all evening. Morgan understood from Ryan's pleased smile that the date would happen. The next day wasn't a day off, but Ryan got up early, shaved, took several showers, pulled out all his shirts, and tried on every tie several times. Why are you dressing up so meticulously? Morgan asked, hearing the commotion. I have a date with Wendy today. Just thinking about what to wear, Ryan replied. Right now? No, at 6 p.m. It's 8 a.m. Aren't you starting too early? Morgan laughed at her friend. I'm nervous. What's so funny? Ryan was a little offended. I haven't had a date in over 10 years. The more you worry and dress up, the worse it is. I'm telling you as an experienced woman. Relax. If you're already interesting, half the job is done, and your excessive efforts will only make it worse, Morgan advised. Oh, Ryan threw up his hands. Thanks for the advice. Help me choose a shirt. None of these, they're all outdated. Wear jeans and a t-shirt, Morgan said. We're going to a restaurant. Ryan didn't understand her. First to the store, we'll buy you a proper suit and shirt, throw all this out. Morgan laughed. Morgan helped Ryan choose a suit. He bought a huge bouquet and went to the restaurant. The date went well. Wendy revealed she was a reporter on a local channel, involved in charity, volunteering, helping the elderly and homeless animals. Ryan fell in love with her at first sight. It seemed Wendy was as nervous as he was, but after hours of conversation, they both relaxed and felt confident. Wendy confessed she was afraid to start new relationships due to a sad experience. Ryan shared that he too had a failed marriage. They quickly found common ground, talking as if they'd known each other for years. They discovered they shared musical tastes, liked the same movies, and much more. By the end of the evening, it was clear they couldn't let go of each other. The next day, Wendy visited Morgan to share her impressions of the date. You look happy, Morgan noticed. It must have gone well. Wonderful, Wendy confirmed. I think I'm in love. How do you know him? I've never met such kind and decent men. Morgan told Wendy the story of how she met Ryan, how he helped her, and shared that she lived with him, clarifying she saw him as a younger brother or even a son. Wendy listened attentively and realized Ryan was even better than she thought. Their living together didn't bother her. It didn't seem Morgan had romantic feelings for Ryan. Ryan and Wendy's relationship blossomed. A few months later, Ryan told her about his wealth, trusting her as she had never shown mercenary traits. He shared his future plans and offered her to live together once the construction was finished. Wendy agreed. Her feelings for him didn't change after learning about his wealth. She loved him for who he was, not for his money. Her only concern was that he spent too much time at work. Both Tony and Morgan told Ryan he needed to reduce his workload. He had already lost one wife due to work and couldn't lose Wendy. Wendy talked to Ryan's colleagues, all praising him as a great specialist. She decided to do a report on him. Ryan refused because he didn't consider his work heroic. Then Wendy decided to make a series of reports about the city's doctors. With colleagues' persuasion, Ryan agreed to participate. The work won a television award. Wendy dedicated the victory to her beloved. When she went on stage to receive the trophy, Ryan joined her and proposed. The hall applauded. It was very beautiful and romantic. Wendy said yes. Life went on. The couple eagerly awaited their move. Morgan was finishing her last days at the salon, planning to quit. Ryan offered her to manage the household. On her last day, Amber came to Morgan for a dye job. Morgan was nauseated by the name. No matter how much time passed, she could never forget her stepdaughter's deed, and the name would only be associated with her. Morgan's surprise was immense when Amber, her old acquaintance, actually walked into the salon. "Hello, did you make a mistake with the hairdresser?" Morgan asked, barely containing her aggression. "Hi, Morgan. No, honestly, I specifically made an appointment with you," Amber said, looking at her stepmother with a puppy dog gaze. "What are you staring at? Sit down. What color are we dyeing?" Morgan asked sarcastically. "I'm not dyeing my hair. I came to talk. I'll pay for the appointment," Amber replied. "Such generosity," Morgan said sarcastically. "Well, if you want to speak, let's go to the break room," Morgan said. Amber sat down opposite Morgan and couldn't hold back her tears. "I'm so sorry. Forgive me," Amber managed to say. "Don't cry. The past can't be changed," Morgan comforted her. She even embraced the girl she had been ready to chase away minutes earlier. "I miss Dad," Amber said. "It's hard for me without him, too. He probably wanted us to reconcile," Morgan said. "Of course, it was his dream," Amber replied. "He would never forgive me for what I did to you." "Don't worry, I'm fine now. Thanks for returning the documents," Morgan said. "When that doctor told me about you, I wanted to disappear into thin air. I think it was then that I fully realized the disgrace of my actions," Amber confessed. "Yes, Ryan is a wonderful person. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be here," Morgan said. "Does he live in that house now?" Amber asked. "No, he demolished it. He's building a new big house there," Morgan replied. "Ah, so nothing of Dad's dream remains. Maybe that's good. It's time for me to let go. Honestly, when I drove you out, I thought you had somewhere to go. You had so many friends, acquaintances. As it turned out, in that circle, everything was about money. If you don't have it, you're useless," Amber continued. "I have something else to tell you." Amber straightened up and wiped her tears. "I'm expecting a baby," she said. "What joy! Congratulations!" Morgan sincerely rejoiced. "How far along?" "Very early, 4 weeks. Are you still with the same young man?" "Yes, he's changed, became very caring. He also asked to apologize for raising his hand. He did it because I asked. I'm so ashamed." Amber cried again. "Stop, we won't remember that anymore. I'm glad everything is fine for you," Morgan comforted her. "You shouldn't get nervous. You can always count on my help. It's almost my grandchild, or granddaughter." "Yes, thank you," Amber said. They sat in silence for a while, drinking water to calm down. "Your story and the doctor impressed me so much. He's an extraordinary person. Did you know he helped me too? I had a hernia that I didn't even know about. He diagnosed me with one look and performed the surgery," Amber continued. "Ryan is a true professional," Morgan confirmed. "I think," Amber continued, "if I have a boy, I'll name him after that doctor. And if it's a girl, after you." "You're so kind. I'm very touched," Morgan smiled and hugged Amber. She believed in Amber's sincerity, but chose not to mention the found treasures. Morgan felt they rightfully belonged to Ryan, and Amber probably received a significant inheritance from her father. They talked for another half hour until Morgan's next client arrived. Construction of the house was nearing completion. It was time to prepare for the move. Wendy suggested investing not only in real estate, but also in business. She convinced Tony, whom she met during the reportage shooting, to present Ryan with the idea of opening a private clinic. He happily agreed. "Ryan, it's time to grow and develop," Tony told his friend. "You've done a lot in public medicine, saved hundreds of lives. It's time to think about yourself." "I've thought about it. I have a wonderful fiancé, good friends, and soon we'll move to the big house I built. What else do I need?" Ryan asked. "Brains, my friend. That's what you lack," Tony joked. "You think everything is simple? Wendy is happy now, but in a couple of years it might be the same as with Pam. And if children come, you won't be able to support them on your modest salary. Plus, the huge house is more expensive to maintain. And yes, you have wealth, but if you just spend it and not invest, it'll run out," Tony explained. "You're always right," Ryan agreed. "And what do you suggest? Take bribes." "Why are you so naive? You need to open your clinic," Tony suggested. "Do you think I can?" Ryan asked. "Why not? You have management experience. If you survived as the head of a department in our hospital, you'll definitely manage a private one. Hire someone for paperwork. The townspeople know you from TV, additional advertising. Clients will queue up," Tony explained. "Will you join me as a therapist?" Ryan joked, knowing the answer. "I can even be the director if needed," Tony laughed. In a month and a half, the house was completed. Ryan, Wendy, and Morgan moved in. Ryan sold his apartment. He couldn't let Morgan go. She helped with the household. Soon, Wendy became pregnant, and Morgan played the role of a nanny. Tony and Ryan opened their private clinic, and their affairs flourished. During a family dinner, with Tony and his wife present, Ryan spoke up. "I want to say," he began, "that I've never been so happy. I'm surrounded by friends, a beloved woman. Soon I'll be a father, something I never thought possible, all thanks to one person. Morgan, you've thanked me many times for saving your life, but I think you saved me. If that patient hadn't come to me that evening, I probably would have ended up a drunkard or died of boredom in loneliness. You've thanked me many times, but it's me who should be thanking you. So accept my gratitude and appreciation. Thank you for being with us." Morgan couldn't hold back her tears at such kind words. Wendy clasped her hands to her chest in delight. Everyone was happy at the moment, forgetting the sad events of their past. Ahead were new victories.